The divider rule is just as much fun as the multiplier rule. It helps your child take the whole group into account, and it's a fantastic step toward building excellent manners. Young children are, and should be for a time, very egocentric, but by about age 3, they should become increasingly aware of the feelings and comfort of those around them. This is the age at which you can begin to say to your child, "Look at her face, how do you think she's feeling?" Or, "The puppy likes gentle pets, let's be so gentle with the puppy." By age 5 or 6, this type of empathy should be well developed, because by age 13, the personality and the basic habits of a person are largely set. The multiplier and divider rules go a long way toward creating this awareness. The divider rule teaches a child to ask, "How many people are around me? How much should I talk, eat, or participate?" The onset of screens has created an exposure to media and a lack of connection with other people that is not serving our children well. We are raising a generation of children who sometimes lack the ability to observe and consider social feedback from others. Although the family television has been around for a long time, screens are much more pervasive today than they once were. One way this shows up is with children who seem to talk incessantly. They aren't listening or noticing those around them, and they just continue with their ramble of thoughts. Perhaps their parents were afraid that they'd be squashing them out, and so have not set boundaries. The flip side of that is a child who cannot seem to engage verbally at all beyond simple responses. This disconnect is being created by the passive nature of screen use, which does not require physical or social interaction. The lack of verbal and social engagement of parents with children due to parents being entrenched with their own screens. Exposure to low-level and questionable material through the media itself. Due to these and various other possible reasons, many children today lack either the interest or the ability to engage socially, and of course I mean through live interaction. I have seen this malaise, and perhaps you have too, with children as young as elementary age all the way through high school and even with adults. It's a sad thing considering all the wonderful and miraculous things that there are to explore and to learn about in our world. Talking too much and a lack of social engagement are just two examples of poor behaviors that are now becoming more prevalent today because of the accessibility of screens, which now often is beginning in infancy. Children, families, and media is a topic that I will be covering in an upcoming video series called Unplugged, which is about balancing technology in modern times. So that will have to be the extent of the discussion for this video so that we can get back to the divider rule. As I've said earlier, children who show a significant lack of social awareness might not receive as many invitations much past the age of 10. That's because by age 10, a child's social invitations are based largely on their behavior and their social graces, rather than being something that their parents have set up for them, like it is in early childhood. The divider rule can be applied anytime people are talking, eating, participating in activity, using some material or object, or are engaged with anything that has some sort of limit, whether of a material item or time. First, let's use talking and listening to demonstrate a time that the divider rule can be very helpful. Preteens, teens, and even very young children can become great listeners and conversationalists. This means making eye contact, actively listening, and then asking questions of the person who's talking so that they can share more, rather than shifting the conversation back to themselves. I once hosted an informal dinner at my home for a couple and their 2 children, as well as my 4 children. We sat at an intimate square table, so we were all very close to one another. The couple's 18-year-old son dominated the dinner conversation for the full hour and a half that we were at the table. He shared about himself, what he was up to, and then his thoughts and feelings on different topics. Neither one of his parents was able to share, despite my attempts to draw them into the fold. He never once asked me or my children to share, and his parents did not make a move to help him stop talking. When a few other things did come up, he quickly shifted the conversation back to himself. His behavior had been reinforced for a long time. There were about 9 people at the table for 90 minutes, so if the divider rule would have been applied, that would be about 10 minutes per person to talk and share. A more outgoing person might talk a little bit more, and a more quiet person might talk a little bit less, but that would be the general guideline. As the hostess, I would try to bring out a more quiet person with an open-ended, easy-to-answer question, and in general, try to make everyone feel included in the evening. If it's a dinner to celebrate someone's birthday, or if there's some other guest of honor, that person might get a little more talking time because people would naturally be focusing a little bit more on them. But this would be a general guideline. But in general, the time would be divided up evenly between the number of people attending. So if there were 10 people, each person would get about 10% of the time. If 4 people, about 25% of the time each. And if 2 people, about 50%, and so on. It's not that you use a timer, it's just a way of monitoring oneself and one's children. Also, once you get good at it, you can use this rule to draw quieter people in any social situation, even if you're not the host. Your host will most likely thank you. Overall, a meal is more enjoyable when it's a shared experience, and that's not just in terms of the food. This young man likely left our home that night with no greater awareness than he came with. He probably had a good time sharing about himself and his experiences, to which we listened intently and asked many thoughtful questions. There's a saying that when you speak, you share what you already know, and when you listen, you have the opportunity to learn something new. This young man is likely missing many opportunities to learn from and to connect with other people, and probably in many situations, and who knows how long this will continue for him. While he might show up fine at a larger party, it's unlikely he'll get as many invitations to smaller get-togethers. The divider rule is a wonderful self-regulation tool for anyone who likes to talk a lot. Another time the divider rule is very useful is when there's a certain amount of food being served to a group of people. In this situation, the divider rule would be, how much food is available and for how many people? Every host and every family has their own budget and idea about portion sizes. When food is served, it's important for children to be aware of how many people are present so that they will know how much to take for themselves. For example, if they're at a birthday party and there's a big bowl of grapes and there's 20 children at the party, they should take an amount that will allow other children to have a try at the grapes too. The same would be true for bacon at a brunch or pizza slices at an end-of-the-year soccer party. Children around age 6 and up can begin to get this awareness. In our family, in addition to the divider rule, we also have something called Family Holds Back, or just FHB. This was started by my children's paternal grandparents for their own 9 children because they hosted many dinners and events and never wanted their children to serve themselves first. This, of course, is because if they had started, there might be only a little bit left when they were done. FHB and the divider rule help my children remember that we let others go first, and when we do go, we take an appropriate amount. Especially when we are likely very hungry and everything looks and smells so good. I know you're a starvin' Marvin, but just wait a few more minutes. Even when we're at other people's homes and we're the guests, so we're invited to go first, I encourage my children to use the divider rule so that they take an appropriate amount, because we're a lot of people to have over, and we definitely want the repeat invitation. Sometimes, even at a simple family dinner at home, if there's a dish that isn't overly plentiful for some reason, it's a good idea to say, let's remember the divider rule and make sure that we all take the right amount of berries. So this rule can apply in any situation where there is food and other people, your own family dinner table included. In the same way, the divider rule can be applied to situations where there is an experience or a material that's limited in some way. For example, perhaps there is a tree swing and there's 8 people in line to use it. The divider rule would help your child to know to just take a short turn, whereas if it was just them and one other child, a longer ride might be just fine. Or perhaps someone has materials at a party or an event to make something. The divider rule would say to use an amount of the materials that would leave enough for others, instead of using all of it or the best of it for oneself. To recap, the multiplier and the divider rules are used for self-regulation. Teach your children to press their pause button and to ask themselves these important questions. Model it for them whenever you get the chance, and it will become just part of what they do. Think and talk it through with them before social gatherings, both at your home and when you're out and about, and when your children are going to be out and about without you. By continuously reminding your children about manners, they will know that they're important to you. And when your children are growing, the things that are important to you will ultimately become permanently important to them, even if it's not until later on in their lives. When children are aware of the concept of manners because of your direct instruction, and in turn learn good manners, they gain self-respect. When children have self-respect, they naturally grow to treat others with the same level of respect. This in turn gives them greater access to all of the wonderful things that there are to experience in our world. In the description of this video, there is a PDF of blank multiplier and divider rule worksheets that you can use with your child or your classroom to help reinforce these strategies. There are also completed samples for your reference. Thank you for watching and for being a part of the Behavior Management Tools course. Your support helps us make more videos, and we really appreciate you. Bye!